Today we'll be calculating the line of best fit and making predictions. Before we get started, let's go over some calculator basics. Since we'll be using a data set today, we will be using the stat key. We'll be entering data, so go ahead and hit enter. And in order to clear any list, you highlight the name of the list you want cleared. In this instance, I want to clear list 4. So I highlight that, I hit clear, and I arrow down. So highlight the list and hit clear, arrow down. The other thing we'll be doing is we're using the symbol Y sub 1. So that's located in the alpha, the green key, and F4 for a shortcut. So alpha, trace. And this menu comes up and we just hit enter to get the Y1 sub 1 key. We'll also be graphing and tracing to get our predictions. So let's go to the zoom and hit number 6. And that's our standard graph, -10 to 10, -10 to 10. But we'll be using this screen to predict numbers greater than 10. So we need to zoom out. So hit zoom, number 3, hit enter, and enter again. Hit zoom, number 3, and hit enter again. And enter again. So we've got this solid line, so we know we'll be able to use that to predict. So let's go ahead and get started and calculate a line of best fit. So here we have some data. We have an X value and a Y value, an independent and dependent value. On music sales, the number of albums downloaded is the independent variable, and the CDs sold depends on how many albums are downloaded. As you can see, the number of CDs sold decreases as the number of albums downloaded increases. So we're going to calculate a line of best fit and then predict how many CDs will be sold if 47 million albums are downloaded. So we're going to go into our stat key and we're going to edit our list. So go ahead and enter your lists and your data into list 1 and 2 and check that it's correct. Once I've entered my list, I'm going to calculate a linear regression. So I hit stat, I highlight calculate, and choose number 4 for linear regression. I'm using list 1 for the X values, list 2 for my Y values, and I'm going to store the equation in Y1. So hit the green key, alpha, trace, or F4, and hit enter. So now I'm going to calculate the linear regression, and it's going to be stored in, the equation is going to be stored in Y1. So here's my equation. So it's in slope-intercept form. I'm going to round to 2 spots. Y equals -6 plus 69x plus 798.48. So there's my line of best fit. So let's use that to predict. Well, let's go back to the calculator. Go into Y equals. Since we said to store that equation in Y1, that's what's in there now. So that's going to be more accurate than if we put in 47 for X on the equation that we wrote. So go ahead and hit trace, and we're going to predict, and we're going to get a more accurate answer using the graphing calculator. So when X is 47, what is Y? All right, so when X is 47, Y is 484.05481. So we're going to round this to the same amount that was the data gave us. This was rounded to tenths, so we're going to round to tenths. So 484.1 million CDs will be sold. So to quickly review what we did, we went to the stat key, we went to the edit and hit enter. We entered our data and checked it. We then hit stat and calculated a linear regression, number 4. We stored the equation in Y1 by hitting the alpha 4 or the alpha trace key. We hit calculate. We got our line of best fit. We hit trace and entered 47 to make our prediction when X is 47, and we got our Y value. So go ahead and do number 2. We have practice time versus mistakes made. The practice time is the x value, or the independent variable, so we'll put that in list 1. And the mistakes made is the y value. We'll put that in list 2. And then we'll use that to predict. And you won't have to adjust your zoom. Your zoom and graph is ready to go. Let's go ahead and try that. So you first go into Stat and hit Edit. Enter your data. Check your data. Hit Stat. Calc. Number 4. Tell the calculator to store your equation into y1. Hit Calculate. Here's your equation. Hit Trace. Enter 15. And it'll be about 0.16 mistakes, or barely any mistakes if you practice for 15 hours. Number 3, go ahead and enter your data and predict for 10 hours of sleep. This is your test score based on the number of hours of sleep. Again, we hit Stat, Edit, we entered our data, we calculated number 4, a linear regression. We stored the equation in y1 by hitting the alpha F4 key. We calculated the equation, we hit Trace, and calculated a prediction based on 10 hours of sleep. On number 4, we have the year in a fair, 1953, 1966. Since this is a year, it's going to skew our data unless we convert it. So let's see what I mean by that. When you're giving data in a year, you'll be given what year 0 is. So in this instance, we're going to say 1950 is year 0. So 1953 becomes year 3. 1981 becomes year 31. 1992 becomes year 42. And year 1995 becomes year 45. So go ahead and use these numbers for your independent variable, or your x value, or list 1. And go ahead and put your fair values in. Calculate your line of best fit and predict the fair for year 45. So again, Stat, Edit, enter your list. We've converted this because we don't want the years in. We want the year from the starting point. Stat, Calc, number 4. And we have our linear regression and our prediction. Number 5, oil changes per year and the cost of repairs. The cost of repairs depends on how many oil changes you have per year. So go ahead and calculate a line of best fit and predict for 13 oil changes how much the cost of repairs will be. So we go into Stat, Edit, and we enter our data and check it. Stat, Calc, number 4. We tell the calculator to store it into y1. We hit Calculate, and here's our line of best fit. And our cost of repairs is $299.64 for 13 oil changes. And our final example is gasoline purchases. We have dollars spent and gallons bought. Now normally gallons bought is your independent variable, and your dollars spent depends on that. But since this is over time and the price of gasoline fluctuates, we're going to make the dollars spent the independent variable, and that the gallons bought the dependent variable. So go ahead and enter that data, calculate your line of best fit, and predict for $18 spent how many gallons of gas you'll get. So again, we go into Stat, Edit, we enter our data, check our data, Stat, Calc, number 4, linear regression. We store the data in y1, We hit calculate. Here's our line of best fit. We hit trace. When X is 18, how many gallons can you buy?